Wilson. I'm the CEO of Generator. It gives me great pleasure to be here tonight. I've known Nat for a couple of years now, and he and I have got to know each other quite well over the course of the project that they orchestrated down in Britomart precinct, and they were also directly involved in some of the architecture that you see throughout Generator. So it's wonderful to have Nat here to talk to us. I'm going to leave Mark to talk a little bit about the Unitec project that we are looking at as part of, I suppose, the evolution of Generator and where we go with it. All I have to say is thank you, welcome Nat, it's a great pleasure, and Mark, over to you.
Yep. So you can see the two of us. So welcome everybody. In terms of the Unitec project, so there's a collaboration between Unitec and Generator, and what that collaboration is essentially is a group of students from a variety of different disciplines. So that's landscape architecture, spatial design, operations, IT and human resources, looking at the shared workspace typology with Generator as the client, looking for both local and international examples, and what they can bring to bear from their respective disciplines to sort of customer experience for a shared workspace and for Generator, and how that might be improved. As part of that process, we've set up this speaker series to bring in a variety of different people from different disciplines to bring their 2 cents or $2 or $10 worth to those conversations and help those students. Where do you rank yourself now? Okay, there you go. Just to help them bring some industry thinking into the work that they're doing. So we'll have a couple more of these sessions. We will also have a presentation of the students' work at the end of the series of probably mid-June, late June, and we'll keep you all informed of that. So without me carrying on too much, I'll leave you in the capable hands of Nat.
I'm going to sit because I have to drive this computer, so hopefully that's okay. I don't really know all that much about shared workspaces. I was kind of subject to a kind of interrogation about halfway through last year from a really large kind of government organisation who was looking to kind of reinvent themselves across the country, across power stations and offices of 400 or 500 people and so on. And we were kind of wild card amongst big kind of office rollout architecture companies. And they asked us all these kind of very probing questions about how we would introduce innovation to the kind of workspace environment. And most of my answers were, I don't know yet. That's why you're going to employ us. And they asked us to present. And so what I presented was the stuff that's kind of out here, because that's the most I knew about kind of human interaction. Because I think out here you kind of see it at its rawest. You see it neat and kind of undiluted by a whole lot of kind of social conventions that drive the kind of commercial shared workspace environment. And so I talked about how places like Hanoi in 1885, BCC and so on, were all providing lessons for the way that we could kind of engage in different sorts of ways, and that I thought that one of the best ways you could change a kind of a typology like the workspace was to come at it from completely outside, which is essentially what you're doing in this class, right? You're coming at it from a kind of academic and conceptual position without that kind of 10 years of backstory of being sued and choosing the wrong products out of catalogs and just, being kind of ground down into this kind of carpet style rollout machine. And so this is, somehow we managed, through kind of sheer kind of effusive passion, I think, to win this really big kind of project. And this is something that Chris in the back row and I are working on at the moment. That's a kind of prototype for a model that's going to roll out around the country. It's an office for about 300 or 400 people. And that's all I'm going to show of it because I believe it works, but it's not built, and so it might not. And so what I want to talk about was the stuff out here. And so this is what, Pip and I started a studio together with 3 or 4 other kind of wonderful people. Pip met a locksmith on the street, got him to change the locks on a derelict building, and we kind of moved in and squatted here for 2 years. Literally, the whole office is made out of kind of Meccano with steel and plywood and so on, so we can decamp in an hour and a half when the kind of landlord eventually turns up. And it's still like that, although the studio has moved. But this is what we arrived to, was the old kind of bus depot for the city that had been sort of become a base for kind of pigeons and prostitutes. It was a place I had my kind of shoes stolen when I came to play in the spacey parlour in the basement here when I was 12. It's a place where people got killed, and then they built a great big train station and gutted the middle, and you see this kind of big tarmac through the middle and all this kind of crap around the edges. But there's a bigger backstory to Britomart that I've told in other places, and I guess this isn't really the time to do it, but I just wanted to kind of foreground the discussion by saying this is what we started with, right? This wasteland. This was a bit of Auckland that Auckland hated. It wasn't that it was indifferent to it, it actually hated it. And when we started here, it was like this, right? You'd have to drive bulldozers into the buildings to kind of clear them out. It was just kind of, a century and a half of accumulated crap. There was an awful afternoon when a bunch of guys just got so fed up and they went into the building, locked all the doors and windows, boarded up everything, and in a building with like 150 pigeons in it, with pigeon shit this deep in the floors, and went in with golf clubs and just got this red mist of bloodlust and just slaughtered them all. So it was like that down here. So it's just kind of, it's worth foregrounding it with that. And this was just a year ago, so there's still a huge amount of this. The city sees Britomart as being finished, but we're really just kind of getting started. Half the buildings around here are still like this. We're still going to drive a bulldozer in to clear them out. This is now actually, I can now say this is the private dining parlour at Cafe Hanoi. So that's what they start like. It was underwater when we started. Like it's just it's vile. And so the whole thing started not with architecture. The thing started with a kind of rewiring the software of the place, getting some of these big old buildings that were not going to immediately kind of fall down and kill people, and get some kind of action in there that would start to rehabilitate them. So the very first things were getting people like Vice magazine, getting them a studio on the second floor of a dingy old building, getting Black Grace, the dance company, in there, and then using it, giving people kind of free access to the space, the right sorts of people to do things like this, which was a kind of a fashion show that Ryder was styling, so that even though we were still trying to figure out what on earth it was that we had and what we might do with it, the place was already slowly starting to start that kind of cycle of rehabilitation in the mind of the city, that it started with those kind of real fringe dwellers that could pay like $100 a month for rent or something, and didn't mind that there were kind of rats on the rafters and broken windows, but that were really carefully selected. It wasn't just some random kind of insurance company. It was Vice magazine, and it was Black Grace, and it was all of these kind of very interesting people doing the sorts of things that you're doing in here. And it meant that it started just at that gradual kind of early adoption fringe to change what people thought the potential of the place might be. And the point of that was that you'd end up with people like this. I mean, it feels like a publicity shot, right? This kind of, it's me, but with a MacBook, and this beautiful kind of preppy kid. But this guy here, Murray Bevan, one of the great kind of PR guys in fashion, it meant that if you had those fringe people there, all of these sorts of people were instantly kind of interested in. So that kind of real periphery occupation started to kind of filter through to the rest of the city through people like Murray, but then at the same time that you started to do it from the other end as well. So you had these kind of hipster kids out here, but then also that you do little things really, really early, like you didn't even have a building to make build the buildings around to make a square out of the space out there, but you'd still put a fountain in there so that the kids could come and play in the sandals in the sun, so that there was this kind of softening of the place going on at the same time, even as it was playing into its kind of tough meat packing kind of fringe interest. And then this was when we actually for the first time thought we might stand a chance. This was there used to be a little lean-to factory building about half a block up here, and the developers came along and built this huge, great office building on one side for Westpac. It's a big new mirror glass building essentially. But Pip and a couple of people in the office and a really, really energetic young operator who had a tiny bar in Christchurch made this laneway and put this extraordinary little kind of bar in it. And it was like this tiny little island of cool in the middle of this wasteland of gravel and car parks and stuff. And people just, we didn't even know, on the first night you didn't know if anybody would show up because Britomart was still